You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hella Well with Danielle podcast, your weekly mental vacay for the busy woman of color who is on her healing journey and is just looking for some guidance. It is the beginning of March, which means it is the end of February, which means it's the end of Black History Month, but it's the beginning of Women's History Month. And so we're at this pivotal intersection of Black history and women's history. And at this intersection of being Black and being a woman, I felt called to have this conversation because, as Malcolm X said one time, the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. So when at this intersection of being Black and being a woman, I wanted to have this conversation because Malcolm X said this in 1962, which is about 60 years ago. 60 years have passed and not much has changed. And so today I'm holding space for those living at this intersection as I tell our truth about the unique experiences that only this group faces in life. But before we get started, I wanted to make a couple announcements. I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of the upcoming Wellbeing Fair on March 19th here in San Francisco. I will be actually doing a mini workshop on helping people connect their mind to their heart and really get you out of overthinking and into that heart space center. And I'll actually be kind of opening the show. The show starts at, the fair starts at 1 o'clock. So I'll be presenting around 1:20. Even if you don't live in San Francisco, the great news that they are actually offering this streaming as well as in person. So whether you live in the Bay Area or you live in South Africa, you live in Houston, you live in Atlanta, you can sign up for this wellness fair. There are amazing women who will be presenting here at this conference. So I encourage you to sign up. It is a sliding scale in terms of ticket cost. And I look forward to seeing anyone in person because I'll also be doing Reiki sessions one-on-one after I do my mini sessions. So I wanted to make sure everyone knew about that, told your friends about it. Now is the time for us to really take care of our well-being. And so I encourage you to take the time at this fair is only 4 hours. Take 4 hours out of your schedule to pour into yourself. The other part of that is every episode, you know how we start. If you're new, we tune in. If you're not new, we tune in. This is a space for us to take away and pause all the noise that's around us and to really breathe into this short period that we are together so that we're present. So what I like to do is start off with doing some breathing exercises. Breathing is such a powerful tool that all of us have at any place we are in our lives. And I think it's so important. So I want to take a moment today we're going to do something different. So today we're going to take an inhale in and then having our exhale be longer. So we're going to inhale for 4, we're going to hold, and then we're going to exhale slowly for 8. All of this is going to be through our nose. We're going to inhale through our nose, holding the breath, and then we're going to exhale through our nose slowly as possible. So if you can, I invite you to close your eyes, get in a comfortable space, begin to start noticing your breath, seeing where you may have some tension in your body, allowing yourself to be present. And we're going to inhale 2, 3, 4, hold, and then exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, inhale deeply, 2, 3, 4, hold, And then exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One last time. Let's make it count. Inhale deeply. 2, 3, 4. Hold. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then inhale and exhale. And just be still for a moment, allowing that little movement of energy to process in your body, to integrate. Maybe setting attention for being open to this conversation, being open to what you may hear, whether you are someone who lives at this intersection or listening to this podcast to educate yourself on what it means and the experiences of living in the intersection of being Black and a woman. And if you haven't already, take a deep inhale, exhale, open your eyes, and let's get into today's conversation. Intersectionality, if you've never heard about this term, was coined by, I believe her name was Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, and she's a lawyer, educator who studies and litigates on important cases about discrimination against Black women. And the term essentially means that the intersection between various demographics and other differences between people. So I wanted to have this conversation, not only because it's the end of Black History Month and the beginning of Women's History Month, but I've been listening to some things that have been inspiring me to have this conversation about the intersectionality of being Black and being a woman. I've been re-listening to Dissect podcast. If you haven't heard the podcast, I love this podcast. Years ago, they dissected, I think around maybe 2020 or so, they dissected Beyonce's Lemonade album, and re-listening to them go through all the hidden meanings behind the visuals, behind the music, behind the words, behind the samples. It really is an ode. You realize that this album not only is this beautiful love letter to and explaining the story and the experiences of what it means to live at this intersection, but it also just, it's very empowering. In addition, I have been reading this banging book by Mary Frances Winters called Black Fatigue, which I know I'll be doing more podcast episodes kind of breaking down some of the things she says, but I really, between the two of those two situations and just kind of being where we are in this time of the year, I felt like the conversation was necessary. It was necessary to have this conversation because sometimes living at the intersection of being Black and a woman can often feel like it's a Bermuda Triangle of human beings. I mean, again, Malcolm X talks about Black women being the most disrespected, the most unprotected. And if you don't believe his words that ring true 60 years and still ring true today, let's look at the stats. Let's look at the numbers. Black women are 243% more likely than white women to die from pregnancy and childbirth related causes. We're 40% more likely to die from breast cancer. We're 60% more likely to be diagnosed with high blood pressure. We're twice as likely to be incarcerated than white women. We're more likely to be killed by law enforcement, to live in poverty, to make less money, even though we're more educated. You know, the median salary at one point, or the median annual income at one point was like around $34K for Black women, $42K for white women, and $61K for white men. As you can imagine, we're severely underrepresented in senior leadership roles. And if that wasn't enough, there was a survey done where, out of, I think 1,000 or so women, 58% of the Black women felt on guard throughout their professional lives, with, 56% of Latinas and 52% of multiracial women feeling the same way. Life at this intersection, and I say we because I too live at this intersection, hasn't been the easiest. This intersection doesn't look the same for someone who is white and a woman. It doesn't look the same for someone who is Asian and a woman. It doesn't look the same, definitely doesn't look the same for someone who is white and a man. We all have our own stories, but there's a familiar story and journey. There's familiar roads that all of us follow, that we've experienced, that ties our stories and our situation and our roads and our journeys to healing together. This feeling of needing to balance who you are with what is deemed quote unquote acceptable and safe to others. Not trying to appear not too aggressive, not too assertive, or not too weak. Giving past your capacity as a badge of honor to be that strong Black woman, but also not trying to be deemed a stereotypical lazy Black. So there's a balance of we want to be strong, but a lot of it is trying to fight against the stereotypes that have been promoted and perceived for centuries. Our journeys are often ones of faith, of strength, of resilience, of pain, of being the glue, the helper, the responsible one, the fixer, being the one who's lifting everyone up. Even when your cup is on empty, you're still trying to lift everyone up and be there for everyone else. There's no rooms for mistake as being someone who lives in this intersection. There's often feelings of being overwhelmed, of constantly being on the defense, feeling misunderstood and isolated, feeling of self-doubt, feeling ignored, feeling invisible, not having a seat at the table, needing to provide evidence for your competence, having your judgment questioned in your field of expertise, feeling like you can't talk about yourself or your life outside of work. We've learned to suppress our feelings and our truths, and that's just a form of survival. Because you can't be too angry, can't be too assertive, can't be too loud. Even though we know it's not healthy to do this, we still do it because it's our survival. This is how we make it in this world we call America, as someone who lives at the intersection of being Black and being a woman. We learn to overcome obstacles at all costs because that's all we know. We know we got to keep pushing against all odds. And history has proven to show that we were deemed as only as workers. And so that's how society has proven us to be, just workers. We experience microaggressions, micro assaults, micro insults on a regular basis, such as, "Oh, you're so pretty for a dark-skinned woman," or "Why are you so angry? Why does everything have to be about race?" Or, "Oh, you're the yoga teacher, you're the manager." Fake shock that, oh my God, how can someone that looks like you be in this role? Having people be surprised that, "Oh, you speak so articulate." So surprised about our language skills and our other abilities. Having your opinion ignored, only to have someone with the same opinion have their words accepted when it's said by someone who's not a Black woman. Our bodies and our beauty is mocked. We're mocked as not being beautiful. We're being told as a child by the media that Black is not beautiful and you should pick up that white doll. And our hair and our lips and our curves are not beautiful, but yet society loves to appropriate our culture and our style constantly. And then think about life as a woman who lives in the intersection of being Black and being a woman in a corporate America. It's not an easy one. We often are the only one or one of few. We deal with double standards. I think about Issa Rae in Insecure, and I felt like she so nailed the life of being a Black woman working in corporate America. I mean, even the show, the title of the organization, We Got Y'all, was an awesome spinoff. And no, y'all don't got us. You got us to make sure that we have our guard up. You got us to make sure that we are constantly needing to prove our worth. We're constantly left out of meetings. We're constantly not promoted. We're not seen as being on the level to be senior management. We're constantly mistreated. And that's exhausting. It's exhausting to constantly have your opinion disregarded, to try to balance and code switch constantly to make sure you're coming across a certain way to where you're deemed as quote unquote safe. And some of you may relate to absolutely everything that I'm saying, and some of you may relate to only parts of it. And that's because we're not all the same. To those listening who are educating themselves, yes, those who may live at the intersection of being Black and being a woman, we may look similar, but we are not the same. Do not get it twisted. I know you get us confused for each other. But we, no matter how light or dark our skin is, but we are not the same. Our journeys may be similar. We may take similar roads, but they're not the same. And it differs based on social economics, sexual orientation, education, socialization, geography, and so much more. I think about my acquaintance who, talks about her story of having only a few dollars between her and her son, and then being able to not only be the first woman of color, the first Black woman to have a patent for natural hair care products and making millions of dollars. I can't relate to her story, nor can I relate to the story of a friend who had everything, came from a wealthy family, lived in a huge house, was making in second grade $20 allowance, where I was getting maybe 50 cents if I was lucky. This friend has never had to want for any money whatsoever. I can't relate to that story. Nor can I relate to the story of anyone who lived in an urban setting, who lived in an all-Black setting, who lived in the country, who lived outside of the country. My story is different. My story of someone who's living at the intersection of being Black and a woman is one of someone who was molested at age 5, who's repeatedly told that children were meant to be seen and not heard. And so I learned not to use my voice that was not valued by those around me, to be raped by a boyfriend in my teens, to be in a life where tokenism was the norm. I was often the only person of color, or maybe of a few. I remember in middle school, we had the highest graduating class of Black students, which we had 8 students graduate that year. Playing soccer and having to have the frustration of when we had games in the rain, and I'm the only one who's unhappy because I know this is going to mess up my hair. And feeling ashamed of this situation, that I am this other, and that my co-players wouldn't understand the fact that I wanted to cover my head with something. I'm like, my mom was sure enough to be able to cover her heads with a plastic bag or shower cap, whatever, so her hair didn't get messed up. But I couldn't, because I felt shame, because I was the only one who was going through this experience. My story is one who has to reparent herself, one who has experienced a long road of healing, limiting belief to discover my self-worth, one that includes discovering Reiki and being able to utilize energy healing to heal myself and to heal others. The road of understanding and discovering Kundalini yoga, which has deepened my level of understanding of self-awareness, being again able to heal and process and move using meditation and learning to use breath as my way of calming myself. So how does someone who lives at this intersection of being Black and being a woman survive the day-to-day foolery that most of us experience? We keep going. We keep on keeping on. We keep the faith. We have our guards up and our mask on, constantly prepared to battle and hide our truths. We make lemonade. We listen to Beyonce, who reminds us that we break generational curses, that we break chains all by ourselves, and we fight for the freedom that we deserve. We read Maya Angelou, who reminds us that yet we rise. We dream of Wakanda forever, and we hope that living at this intersection gets easier for our future generations. We join communities that give us safe space to be us, safe space to breathe and not hold our breath in anticipation of trouble, pain, and mistreatment. You know, people have been asking me recently, like, why do you keep doing these breathwork situation, breathing techniques before each episode? The reason I do this is because so often people who live at this intersection of being Black and a woman unknowingly hold their breath. They're waiting for the next shoe to drop, the next problem, the next microaggression, micro-assault, micro-insult that's going to be thrown their way. So then they're taking short, shallow breaths and not realizing in doing so, unknowingly, you are starving your cells. Your cells need that oxygen for them to survive and for you to thrive. But we're taking these shallow breaths and we're not using our full capacity, our lung capacity to breathe in and to feed not only our souls and our bodies, but just everything that makes us us. So your breath is a powerful tool that's with you at all times and doesn't cost a thing. Yet we don't use this tool that's at our disposal. And that's why I'm actually literally in the process of creating a mini course for the busy Black woman who lives at this intersection, which I'm sure will work for other people as well. But specifically, I was thinking about my sisters when creating this and giving you some easy tools to how to use your breath in moments of stress, how to use your breath in moments of being burnt out, being forced to deal with microaggressions and feeling like you're not enough in these situations. But I want to end on a note of hope. Despite all the pain and mistreatments and the aggressions thrown at us, whether micro or not, because sometimes they ain't micro, we experience inside each of us this thing we call magic. Or as Kashawn Thompson in 2013 so poetically called it, Black girl magic. And I remember reading and hearing also in Dissect that she was intentional about using the word magic. She was quoted saying, "It is something that people don't always understand. Sometimes our accomplishments may seem to come out of thin air because a lot of times the only people supporting us are other Black women." I want you guys to understand that Black girl magic is about embracing all that we are individually and collectively. It's about embracing our bodies. It's about embracing our culture, our history, our journey, and unapologetically embracing all that it means to live at the intersection of being Black and being a woman. So today I honor my fellow Black women. I celebrate you. I want you to know that I see you. You are not invisible, that you are not alone on this path and this journey. Though our journeys and roads may look different, we are all here collectively experiencing this moment of what it means to live at the intersection of being Black and being a woman. So each time I get on this mic, it is to create a safe space, a mental vacation for those who need some quietness from the noise, that need help on that healing journey, including myself. So if you know someone who may need to hear this message, or you know someone who needs some education, I invite you to share this episode with them. And I invite you to remember that you are worthy, not because of anything you are, not because you live at this intersection, not because of what you've had to endure, but you are worthy just because you exist. Period. I love you, and I will see you next week. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.